Hi. All right. So this week we're going to talk about stress. To start, there's obviously valid stress. We experience stress if there's actual danger. If we're hiking in the woods and we think we see a bear, that's going to be stressful. Generally, these actual dangers that are a threat to our lives are short-term and imminent, in which we have to act now in order to survive. Or they can be long-term, like starvation or sleep deprivation, and they can be chronic. Actual danger can also be a threat to our well-being. That might look like if your family is experiencing financial instability. It could be an abusive or a neglectful relationship. So then there's a whole other category of stress, what I'm calling perceived danger. The name gives it away. It relies on our interpretation or our meaning making. It doesn't actually pose a threat to our lives or our well-being. If you know anything about the stress response, they're not something that we have to actually think about before the fight, flight, or freeze system kicks in. These things are biological. So everything we've talked about as sources of stress, they're either actual danger or they're perceived as dangerous. We must be able to interpret, is this safe or is this dangerous? And then move forward. I'm going to talk here a moment about a trauma specialist named Peter Levine. Peter Levine actually studied animals in the wild, and he was one of the first, if not the first, to notice that mammals in the wild seemed to do a better job at handling stress and traumatic events than people. And what he noticed was, a duck could be swimming in the lake and a crocodile pops out of the water and the duck's life is in danger. There's excess blood pumping through the body. It's ready to fight or flee. And it's probably not going to win that one. That was a traumatic experience, right? If any of us were almost snatched by a crocodile while we're peacefully swimming in a lake, that's going to feel pretty traumatizing. And when I say trauma, I'm talking about an experience that was too much to handle at the time. And what Peter Levine noticed was that when the duck got to a safe spot, it had a similar response across every animal that he studied. And what it does is it shakes its whole body. Peter came to recognize this innate response to trauma as discharge. So much like the body's response to stress is innate and it's biological, it just happens, the same thing is true for this discharge. The mind doesn't necessarily make it happen, it just happens naturally. And you've probably experienced this yourself. If you've ever had a bad accident, you might experience trembling or a shakiness. And it doesn't even have to be a big event, right? Some of us experience these things before we get on stage to talk. And he concluded that the real difference between animals' response to stress and humans is that animals don't talk themselves out of their natural reactions, whereas humans can interrupt and suppress their body's natural response to overwhelming experiences. I think it's really important to talk about the mind-body connection when we're talking about stress. Regardless of if it's actual, perceived, short-term, or long-term, it's not only held in our mind as repetitive and anxious thinking, but it's also housed in our bodies. Now, this discharge is something that we can actually activate ourselves, and we will later learn how to do that in this class. So a slowing down or feeling the body and becoming present is needed to allow our bodies to relieve the excess stress. If there's an actual danger, we might need to be aware and focused on what's happening outside of us or what we can do in this moment to make sure that we're safe. But when we perceive that something is stressful, we're telling ourselves this thing that just happened 10 minutes ago is bad, it's awful, it shouldn't have happened. There's all of this mental noise, this thinking about what happened. And that's actually where the suffering is, right? Because in this moment, if we really just feel the body, oh, okay, this is now. That happened 10 minutes ago, and I'm actually okay right now. There is no threat to my well-being. There is no threat to my life. So this simple, I'm not saying it's easy, but it's simple, slowing down, feeling the body, feeling the belly and the belly's breath, becoming present, it snaps us out of that suffering, uncomfortable mind loop. If you're an athlete, or if you're someone who's really active in their body, and you experience the state of flow, so you're not thinking about time, you're just kind of lost in what you're doing. If you're a person that's experienced that, you're likely going to have an easier time with this shift from the mind anxiety to inhabiting your body. Now, for those of us who maybe don't identify with that, we might even find it uncomfortable or uneasy to pay attention to how the body feels. We might even avoid it, right? We might run from that experience of just being with our bodies. Many of the stress reduction techniques that we're going to use in this class are bringing the mind and body together in the present moment, which is the only place that the body can exist. Our minds can take us back in the past and into the future, but our bodies are always here now. And so they make an excellent resource if we can focus our mind's attention. It's like dropping right into the present moment and learning to deal with whatever we're actually feeling in that moment. It takes some time. And for most of us, it's just not something that we've been taught. And that's okay. So I just want you to be thinking about how it is that you interact with the world, how you're perceiving things around you, and maybe even beginning to add the question, is this an actual threat or a perceived threat? Does it actually need to be addressed in this moment? Or is it in the past and over with, and all that is required is that we recognize that? This is an exciting time to realize just how much power we have in our interpretation of things around us. And maybe you're feeling ambitious, you're ready to take this on, or maybe you're feeling like, oh God, what have I gotten myself into? Either way, this class is going to be what you make out of it, how you decide to integrate what you learn in here into your life. And really, after all is said and done, what's really going to matter is how you're living in your life. If we can go through life happier, with more joy, and with more loving presence for ourselves and others, what kind of world would that be?